That light turned red, and I hit it again. And this time, there was nobody going through the light the other way. I don't know how far I am down now, but nobody went through it. It's one of those lights that I guess it didn't have there was, from what I could see, maybe somebody had pulled up to it and turned right or something, but the light turned red, and while I sat there, nobody went through the direction in front of me. And my point is, that I found myself, sitting there with these two focuses in my mind. When, right, I'm sitting at the light, when will this wait be over? And at that last light, what was the purpose? What was the purpose for even waiting? And if you've come here tonight for me to answer those two questions in your life, you can leave early because I'm going to answer them right away. When will the wait be over for whatever you're waiting for? I have no idea. What is the specific purpose for why God's having you wait? I'm not sure. All right? Because, in other words, when we're talking about specifics, right, and sometimes that's, when is this going to be over? Or, whether it's, when is this time of question going to be over? When I'm waiting for an answer. When is this time of suffering going to be over? When will this relationship change? When, is God going to provide what I think He needs to provide? And in the last week, I've dealt with people, and I'm not thinking of any of you specifically, but I've dealt with people on all those subjects. I've heard myself talking about those, right? And we're going to see tonight, not that there's a way to find out. There's no, divide this chapter by how many verses, and it'll tell you how many weeks of unemployment you're going to need. There's no, right? You're not going to find an answer in Scripture as to how long, Lord, will it be till this waiting period is over. You're not going to find that. But what we are going to at least find together, I hope, is a sense of the fact that God does use waiting in our lives for us to grow. Many of you know the verse in Isaiah 40, those that wait, verse 31, those that wait upon the Lord, those who wait for the Lord will renew their strength. They will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary. And I believe that until we're with the Lord, that this is meant to be a permanent principle. That there is no spiritual shortcut around it. There's no spiritual technology that is going to eliminate waiting in God's plan. Technology is fantastic, and I love it. Love the fact that I didn't get to have dinner before, right, to our time tonight. Maybe a lot of you didn't, but I'll go home tonight. I'll be able to heat up some of that chicken parm and ziti in what? A minute, right? I love technology and what it's able to accomplish. I love the fact that, we can communicate instantly, right? My daughter at Grove City, she can say, I need this, and I can text her right back with the information instantly. Great technology. But waiting is one of God's classics. I was those of you with younger children, I remember when I used to, this time of the year, I'd start Googling on, toys for kids under 10, toys for kids in this age or that, and, that kind of what's out there. And so I got, Amazon is always they send me something every day. And today was top 10 toys, right? But there it still was. I don't know whether, kids would pick this. Amazon did. Lincoln Logs, the classic edition. The Lincoln Logs. And it was like, oh, man. I almost want to get a box just to open the lid and smell those Lincoln Logs. And there's just that Lincoln Logs. The memories, the playing with Lincoln Logs. It's a classic. Well, so is waiting. God has chosen, and Isaiah tells us this, He has chosen waiting as a tool in building every generation in the lives of his people. I don't know how many of you ever read the Complete Green Letters, or even it was several sets of books by a guy named Miles Stanford, not Miles Standish, Miles Stanford. And he says this: it seems that most believers have difficulty in realizing the fact that God does not hurry in his development of our Christian life. And he talks all about how often as new believers we may start off, with a shot, but and then slow down and we think, well, what's the problem? And he uses an illustration of how all that new growth within the tree takes place in a short period of time, and the whole rest of the year is just the tree, that new growth solidifying, right? That time in God's recipe, time is an ingredient that produces strength. That's what Isaiah is saying. That time is an ingredient that God uses to produce strength. And in our minds, maybe not yours, mine sometimes there's this idea of, if I just learn the lesson quicker, I won't have to go through that waiting. But the waiting isn't because we're doing something wrong. The waiting, the time, it's an ingredient that God uses. That there are times when we're saying, Lord, I'm trusting you. I want to see that person change or open their eyes to you or forgive or reconcile. Lord, what is it I need to do? Just nothing. It's not in your control, right? Time. I think did I share with you all about a parent that came to me about their child wanting more playing time. They want their child to be on the United States Olympic team. That I don't know if but anyhow, I had coaching in soccer, and one of the parents came up to me and said, why isn't my daughter getting more time? I said, well, I want to just let me first say some good things about your daughter and things that I have seen well, but she, to be honest, right now she's probably in that 17th to 20th player on our team, and it's hard to get them on the field. And he said, well, she graduated 8th grade last year. She's a freshman this year, and he was just saying that in her speech she stated that she wants to be on the United States Olympic team. And he said, what can I do to make that happen? And I said, there are no United States Olympic players. I'll just be realistic. There are no United States Olympic players on this team. There are none in this league. And typically, if the United States Olympic team is not looking at you already, or at least their junior Olympic team by the time you're a freshman in high school, it's too late, right? Typically, right? And I wasn't, the point I was simply making is that there can be this sense in us. I know even myself, with our children, what can I do to make this happen? I want to get them from here to here. And sometimes in life, God's saying to us, wait a minute. No, you're forgetting. You can't. It isn't that you're doing something wrong. You just can't make them go from age 8 to age 17. It's not in your power. You can't just do this and make this happen. One of my ingredients sometimes is waiting. Waiting. And I use it. And in Psalm 62, we see David speaking to us about that. In Psalm 62, about that aspect of waiting. Time. That is actually an ingredient that he's using to produce strength. They that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. David says in Psalm 62, verse 1, my soul waits in silence for God only. And there's a way to wait. I've told for example, in soccer, if you don't have the ball and you're standing waiting for the ball, if you're standing like this, that's one way to wait for the ball. But it's probably not coming to you, and if it does, you're not ready for it, right? And so we try to teach them that in soccer should be on your toes. So you're moving, you're waiting, you're moving. Your feet are light, we try and tell them, keep your feet light, right? The ball's coming to you. Even when it's coming to you, have your feet moving, being ready to be able to, there's a way to wait, right? If I'm waiting for the pass, get open, right? In other words, put yourself in the place to wait. Well, David, I believe, gives us some good tips here at least. Waiting in that time, right? Wait for God to direct your steps. He says there. That's the first thing I'm saying. Nothing ingenious there. Wait for God to direct your steps. He says, my soul waits in silence for God. It's fascinating. Whenever we say that, I realize we talk about waiting. There's always this, because when somebody may be sitting here with somebody who's waiting too much, right? You're waiting for them to go, do something, or we obviously realize there's practical common sense. As a father, I can't sit and wait for God to put food in my refrigerator. I need to go look for work, and find a way to do that. But there is a key of what? In all of that, waiting for God to direct my steps. That there is this constant sense of, Lord, the doors to be opened are doors that I want you to open. And it's fascinating how honest David is, because he speaks in a way that I know that I certainly find myself. It kind of reveals this picture of the journey of growth and waiting, because in verse 1, he says what? My soul waits in silence for God. In verse 5, what does he say? My soul, wait in silence for God. So it's David saying the same words, but one is he's stating it as a celebration of, wow, my soul waits in silence, right, for God. I wait for God to direct my steps. And a few verses later, he's talking to himself and he's saying, wait for God to direct your steps. It's that you know what I mean? It's that picture of how we can. It's this growth, this journey of going back and forth between times in my life where I'm singing, in His time, He makes all things beautiful in His time. I'm waiting for His open door, to times that I'm singing to myself, Vincent, wait for God to open the door. I think about that passage. It's in the Gospels, different places, but I know Mark chapter 9 is one of them, where right, the man says to Jesus, if you have the power, would you heal my son, or something like that? And Jesus says, if, right? And the man says, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief, right? I've said that to the Lord. Lord, I'm trusting you. Now help me trust you, right? That sense. And that's what David's saying. He's saying, Lord, I wait for you to open the door, and help me wait. And he's talking to his own soul. Wait for God to open the door. We can't burst the doors down. It's just not in our power. Dave was sharing stories on Sunday about our time together. And I remember in college, Randy Smith doing something just to really upset Dave. Dave was right across the hall from us in the dorms. And he just went too far, Randy did. And I can remember Randy running across the hallway and seeing Dave coming behind him. And Dave looked like it was the angry Dave. And I see Randy coming, and we had those deadbolts, and Randy I'm going to beat him, and slamming the door shut behind him, and the deadbolt locking. And not even a second after that latch locked into the frame, when the whole frame shatters and the door just smashes back. And there's Dave standing there. It was like if it were a movie, there would have been all this smoke, right? As Dave would have been standing in the smoke. But it was real life, and it was just Dave standing there, and he just said, "What was it? I don't like being teased or hurt," or whatever it was. I think Dave had worked all night. I'm not picking on it. He had worked all night as a security guard, and I think they kept waking him up, and he was exhausted, and so. But I'll never forget it. I just sat there thinking, wow, the door frame was shattered. It was just shattered, pieces. And Dave yeah, not only that, the doorknob put a hole in the sheetrock in the wall. But my point is, burst through the door, right? And, we can try and burst through the door. But the point being to do what? To be really waiting and saying, okay, Lord, I don't like it. I don't like it. But I see it as an ingredient in your hands to strengthen me. And so wait for God to direct your steps. Secondly, trust God to provide your needs. Again, there are no incredible secret revelations, right? But what does he say? From him is my salvation. It's the Lord, I'm going to wait on him because from him comes my salvation. And I don't know if you've ever been in the opposite place where David is. I know I've certainly, found myself saying, Lord, guard me from that, right? But that sense of, forget it, God. I gave you a chance. I've been waiting. I gave you a chance. Kind of touched on it, Sunday morning when, that can cause us to lose perspective. But Lord, I gave you a chance. Forget it. You had your time. Now I'm taking matters into my own hands. It's my turn, right? And I've spoken with people who have said to me, Pastor, when you're doing counseling, feel free to use me. Literally, use me as a personal example. And one particular gal who said to me, feel free to use me with any younger woman who is basically, you think they're at that point where they're saying, God, I gave you enough time to find me a Christian man. You didn't, so I'm going to go find an unsaved guy to marry, right? And this woman said, I want you to feel, that's what I did. Feel free to use me as an example in counseling. Feel free to send that woman to me, and I'll talk to her about, how I wish I trusted God to provide needs. Verse 8, what does he say? He says, trust in him at all times, O people. Because waiting does, waiting can bring us that sense of, forget it, God, I'm going to go take care of it myself. And again, as I say this, we have to keep everything, there are areas of responsibility we obviously need to move on, right? If somebody comes to me and says, Pastor, I need money to pay my bills, and I say, where do you work? Where are you working? I say, I'm not working anywhere. I'm going to say, okay, are you looking for a job? Doesn't mean that there's a job out, but are you looking? Are you trying? Are you doing something while you're waiting on God to provide your needs? David adds something else that I think is very practical. Wait silently, kind of in stillness. When he says that, my soul waits in silence. And again, I think there's just no way around that. We can't, there's things we can adapt, but the silence, sitting quietly with God. Chip Kelly, who is the new Eagles coach, when the Eagles, they practice with real loud music because that's his way of, we're going to, to be able to deal with all the crowd noise, we're going to make it even louder in practice to be able to deal with the crowd noise in the game. And so it may be that when you're struggling, I'm just going to turn the praise music up louder and louder. And there's a time for that. But there's also a time to just sit. And I can tell you some of the times that I'm so grateful to God, I've kind of I tend to sit over there when I come in here. Nobody's in here. But that's just because of my own journey. It's in the middle of that section over there near the pew that I first sat down in the mid-'70s and heard Pastor Mitchell preaching the gospel. So that's where I'll just sit. And I don't bring earbuds, and I don't bring books, and I just sit. And I say, okay, Lord, I'm distraught, or I'm confused, or I don't know how to handle this, or I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to try and listen. I'm going to try and listen to you as you decide to help me hear what my own thoughts and where I'm thinking wrong and where I'm not, hearing but I'm just going to sit quiet before you. And I'm going to ask you to just let me wait on you and hand over these things to you. And boy, there's just something, Lord, I give you this, and I give you this, and I give you this. And I know that that's a unique blessing to my job. When Jen's nursing, she can't say to all the patients, hang on a moment, and go into the solarium, and just like, or when you're doing whatever, teaching a class or handling kids, or whatever it is. I know that. I know that that's one of the things that your provisions for me to be a pastor allows me, but to sit quietly before God and to just say, Lord, I'll wait with this, and I'll wait with this, and I'll wait with this, and I'm going to wait on you. And wait in stability and confidence, because what does he say when he says there, he only is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold, I shall not be greatly shaken. In other words, my kids were just like me probably. And when I was, when they were waiting, if they were waiting and then, when they're in before you know it, they're banging their head on the car seat or whatever, in other words, that it's the, they're not, there's no real waiting. It's just, I have no power to get us to move and leave. So there is no sense, we understand that level of immaturity, but as we grow, it can't just be, okay, God, come on. This sense of, Lord, I'm going to wait on you in confidence. We're going to be praying for Terry, Dar, and Dan. And yesterday morning, I went over to visit Dan in Presbyterian Hospital because they did this ablation on his heart, and it worked. And they were happy with it in essence, but initially. But Terry left him and waited. I think I have it right, as she was because she was there yesterday morning, and hours went by, right? And I'm not saying anything bad about the hospital, I don't know, but hours went by, and as these hours went by, she began to sense what? A lack of confidence. Something is wrong, and something was wrong. They didn't realize in the process that they had nicked the artery inside his heart. And they had to do a procedure to save Dan's life. I mean, is what Terry said. They told him his life was in a very precarious place. They had to, you could put a needle in his heart and pull out the blood. His blood pressure was, I thought he said his blood pressure was down to something like 59/47, something like that. And they had to, fortunately, be able to reverse the blood thinning medicines, and they did. They did a good job. But by the grace of God, Dan's, I think today was supposed to come out of CCU and go into a regular room. But when we're waiting on God, one of the ways that we wait is knowing this: I know God isn't missing anything. That's the one thing I know. That there is no sense with God that anything is being missed. And so, Lord, I'm waiting on you. If there's anything you want to show me that I should be doing differently here, but Lord, I'm waiting on you for healing. I'm waiting on you to provide in our needs. I'm waiting on you, Lord, to heal this relationship. I'm waiting on you, Lord, to change that. I'm waiting on you. And I'm doing it knowing that you're not missing anything. that there's a confidence in waiting on you, Lord. And it does. I believe what David points out to us is that waiting focuses us. It gives us an ability to recapture a view of God, kind of versus us, an exalted view of God, right? Because in Psalm 62 and verse 1, in the Psalm 6 times David says only, only, only. But in verse 1, he is focused on what? God is our only deliverer. My soul waits in silence for God only. From Him is my salvation. In verse 2, He is our only security. Okay. I didn't know what I was hearing. It's a little life back there. That's all. I don't know. I thought I heard somebody saying, "Pastor," and I was like, "Whoa." That was. He only is my rock and my salvation, right? He is our only security. Verse 5, He is our only hope. My soul wait in silence for God only, for my hope is from Him. Verse 7, on God my salvation and my glory rest. He's my only glory. Also there, He's my only refuge, the rock of my strength. My refuge is in God. And I see David saying that. When I'm sitting there with no ability to move this situation, I can't rush the doctor's remedy. I can't rush the hiring process. I can't rush my child into maturity. I can't rush that person to salvation. It causes me to see God is my only deliverer. He's my only security. He's my only hope. He's my only glory. He's my only refuge. It causes me to see what David says in verse 11. Once God has spoken, twice I have heard this, that power belongs to God. Power belongs to God. And waiting can be agonizing. Waiting can be, it can cause tremendous tension in a couple that's waiting for something together, right? But it also can cause us to find strength, because waiting produces strength. Just read the little bottle of crazy glue there, right? You got to give it that 20 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it is. You can't just put it on and pull it off. There's that time that's needed for strength. And that's an ingredient God uses in our lives. And so it doesn't solve the questions of when will this be over. But it does help us, as we set out in the beginning of the series, to say, I can still open my arms to times of waiting because God is going to use it in my life. Father in heaven, I thank you that you love us too much to rush us along. You love us too much to shortcut the road to our strength. We thank you for that, Lord, and we pray that you would give us the grace to see that in our own lives and see it in the lives of others. That time is an ingredient. Help us to find that strength. In your name we pray. Amen.